So anyone that wants to review this or pass along that the panel took place today, it will be on our Chamber's YouTube and Facebook and other social media channels later today so that we can ensure that our conversation today is shared more broadly. So as you're aware, last July, the Nova Scotia government signed an affordable childcare agreement with the federal government with a goal of providing $10 a day childcare. They'd also planned to create 9,500 new childcare spaces and provide higher salaries for childcare workers by 2026. All of these efforts would certainly benefit working parents. However, the agreement providing limited options for privately owned childcare centers, which hold 57% of childcare spaces in the province, is deeply impacting the businesses with the options that are being presented. So these businesses, predominantly owned by women and staffed by women, cannot offer subsidized fees for parents and higher wages for workers unless they join a new centralized organization being developed through the Department of Education. We're also aware that at least 2 other provinces, New Brunswick and Alberta, are not taking this approach with their federal provincial agreement, and they're working with privately owned centers on inclusion within their formulas. During a conference call last week, the department gave private childcare center owners their options. Many within the industry are calling their options that they were presented with similar to a hostile takeover and are deeply concerned about the impacts on their business and the children that they care for on a daily basis. For-profit center owners can decide to become an approved service provider under the new system, keeping their business but losing control over their operations. They can choose to transition to a not-for-profit model and give up their business to this new centralized organization, or alternately, they can remain private and lose all current sources of funding. Today, on this discussion panel, we'll hear from at least 5 of our local Truro Colchester businesses as they're sharing the firsthand knowledge of what these choices and the potential impacts are on the businesses. So I will briefly introduce our panel participants, and then we'll move into more in-depth introductions. So joining us on the panel today is Pat Roberts from Mount Pleasant Nursery School. Pat, you want to give a wave so people recognize you? There she is. And Andrew Gilroy, who has 2 locations, Bible Hill and Salmon River Play to Learn. Paula Weatherby, who owns the Love, Laughter, and Learning Center. Lise Braley and her mom, Brona Allen, co-owned My Pride and Joy Learning Center. And Ellen Butts is joining us from Making Friends Play School. So thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy days and joining us. So I would like to just go around and have a little introduction from each of you to talk about your childcare centers. So let's start with Andrew. You want to unmic there and tell us a little bit about your operation.
Sure. No, thanks for inviting me. So yeah, I have the 2 locations, Bible Hill and Salmon River Play to Learn. Combined, we got 85 spots, so 57 in Bible Hill and 28 Salmon River. That does toddler, preschool, before and after. So we do it all there. And collectively, I guess we have 10 staff at both locations, and so we've been open since 2017. So I haven't been in as long as some of the others, but I love it the same, and would like to keep going that way.
Okay, and Patricia or Pat. Oh, Pat, you're still muted.
Okay, now?
Yes.
I am co-owner and director of Mount Pleasant Nursery School, that is a funded licensed center in the middle of, pretty much the middle of Truro, for 70 children. And I have an after-school program that is not funded for 30 children. And I've been in operation since 1977, so September will be 45 years. I have probably all in all 16 staff, and from infant right to school age.
Wow, you've been in the industry a long time, Pat, and congratulations on your upcoming anniversary.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll still be here.
Paula, let's hear a little bit about your operation.
I opened in 2004 in my space that I'm in now. So I've been doing this for 18 years. I ran in a United Church for a couple of years before that. And I have 40 spaces now. I started out with just preschool and have grown to the point where now I have 40 full day spaces. Only 20 of my spaces are funded because there was always, you had to sign something to say that if you did expand or you did do anything, you didn't get the funding. I'm the only one from Parsboro, like right through to Truro. So I'm the only one in my area that's actually a licensed center that can have subsidized kids. And a lot of my children are subsidized. And so C is really not an option. I would be scratching off so many children, and yet neither are either one of the other options. So anyway, that's why I'm here, because I want people to know exactly what they're doing, the government that is.
Great, thank you so much, Paula. And Elise, let's hear from you.
Good morning. We're in Bible Hill, my pride and joy. We have 66 seats. I've been doing this since 2000. I did the host for 10 years, and then we opened up here in 2011. And I'm just here to hopefully get some answers today and help.
Okay. And Ellen?
10 staff.
Oh, 10 staff. Okay, great. And Ellen, let's hear from you.
I'm located downtown. We're on King Street. We have 20 spaces. We have 8 subsidies right now. And we go from 18 months to 5 years. So, and I've been here 25 years actually. So yeah, long time. I'm 34 years doing childcare. So yeah. And I have 6 staff, counting myself.
It's certainly wonderful to see the caliber and longevity of quality care that our local community is able to offer our working parents and community. So taking a little step back, so prior to the announcement of the agreement, your sector has been faced with a number of challenges over recent years, from pre-primary adaptations and developing new programs. So just to kind of review some of those, what do you view are some of the biggest challenges that are facing your industry prior to this announcement? And maybe we'll start with you, Andrew.
Okay, so before the announcement, sometimes that kind of brought us some hard times was like the pre-primary program, and that rolled out. I know we used to have 24 preschool kids, and it was full, 3 teachers, 24 children. And then we had to change our model that year because so many children had switched probably to the pre-primary. Even some of the older toddlers were old enough to go come September. So we had to reconfigure the company a couple of times. Even in the short 4 years we've been open, just because of the pre-primary and other changes that affected us in that way.
Okay, Pat, did you have anything to add to that? Any challenges that you were facing?
Well, I think trained staff is one thing. I mean, we're always, lower fees for parents, always upgrading to keep on top of everything. As a matter of fact, I've registered and taking a university certificate in administration right now, although I have taken other education courses towards that too. But it was 1971 when I graduated with a degree in early childhood. But as part of my course, I did a little bit of research for a talk I had to give, a presentation for my course. And I just wanted to take a minute to give a little background for some people who may be with us today that don't know the background of commercial centers, how they were just as important in bringing about this new system of quality, affordable childcare for parents. We've been pushing for this along with the nonprofits side by side all these years. And since 1971, really, when I graduated, there was only 14,000 daycare spaces in all of Canada. And by 1984, Brian Mulrooney was promising a national daycare system and made it part of his federal election campaign. That was probably the first time, and a federal task force he set up to explore the idea of a national childcare plan. So the provincial governments set up roundtables to write drafts on now that the federal government was promising childcare money. And I was privileged and asked to sit at that table, of that round table, to discuss and plan for Nova Scotia, a plan for a universal childcare program. And we had the plan, we had the document, and we're ready to send it to the government. And after months of meeting, a draft was written and presented and accepted, and it was vetoed by the Conservative government when the Liberals lost power in the November election that year. So then in 1988, I attended the National Childcare Conference in Ottawa, where attendees marched in solidarity to Parliament Hill, again advocating for the National Childcare Plan. The federal governments have attempted to advance this childcare program in 1993, 2003, 2005. And despite these efforts, in 2020, Canada still had no comprehensive national strategy or policy, because the changes in governments repeatedly intervened. So during this 50-year span, the catalyst to continue to push for universal childcare remained the same, namely quality of care, accessibility to care, affordability of care. In 1998, 77% of daycares, single mothers were in the workforce or trying to get into the workforce, had grown from 27%. So the average two-income family spent about 22% of their salary on childcare. 60% of single mothers had incomes that fell below the low-income age line, and women had one unpaid job in the home, one low-paid job in the labor force. So 40% of parents at that time had difficulty finding childcare arrangements at all. So profit centers, what are called profit centers, although we're very similar to the nonprofits in that aspect, is that nobody was making a lot of money. The only difference is, for most, they maybe will own their building in the end, or we hope to be able to keep our building, because we don't have retirement savings. Most of us spent all that money throwing it back into our buildings, taking out second mortgages to improve quality. I myself had a modest retirement plan that I was allowed to borrow from if I needed the money, and I did need the money. So that retirement is gone, and I'm getting close to retirement age and love my job and hope to be able to continue in it for as long as my health permits. But my building is my nest egg. And if I lose that, it's going to be devastating. So the Canada-wide community-based early learning and childcare system of Justin Trudeau's 2021 budget should make life more affordable for Canadian families, create new jobs, grow the middle class, increase participation in the workforce, and drive strong economic growth across the country. This is a quote from Justin. This fight for universal childcare may have been waged through marches, petitions, and wearisome bureaucratic battles, but early childhood educators played a crucial part in keeping up the momentum, moving forward daily, piece by piece, over the past half century. The goal of high-quality childcare has always been about making a world in which children, women, and families are free to achieve their full potential. And the commercial centers were right there.
All right, we'll move on to another question there, Pat, and we'll come back to you. Paula, let's talk to you a little bit about, we'll dive right into the issue that we're facing here. So we understand that the province has provided privately funded childcare centers with 3 options, but also included in this agreement are, there'll be impacts on our not-for-profit childcares. There will be impacts on unlicensed childcare. We know it's wide sweeping, but today's conversation, we're focused on the private licensed childcare. So with what we're understanding is these options that have been given and what they say is a new centralized childcare system. Can you tell us how those options will impact your business depending on which one you may or may not choose?
Yes, in all honesty, there's not one there that I could pick. The options are not, just for an example, just to give you option A, my buyout or whatever they want to call it would be $9,000, $9,900 and some dollars. And that's for them to walk in and basically run my business under this big head. And for number 2, it would be 19,000 something. And that's for them to come in and own everything that I've acquired and done. That's not my building, but that's, all my programs that I've worked on and done, my whole life to make my program under, what I believe. As my name says, Love, Laughter, and Learning Center, my foremost thing is love is the cornerstone of any childcare, because you have children that are with us more than they are waking hours than they are with their parents. If they don't feel loved every day, we're not doing our job. And then laughter for me is the next thing, because kids have 12 years if they're lucky to play hard. They need to get dirty. They need to take risks. They need to use their imaginations. All these things are fading away. And I think it's important and key. And learning is the next thing. I mean, if they don't get a good base and they start primary and they're not ready, that follows them through their whole schooling. They don't enjoy school, or they're frustrated with school. And so, by being in quality childcare, they're getting all of these things that are important. But if you pull the heart out of it, like all of these ladies that are running their small businesses and men, we've poured our heart into this, and it's our namesake and it's our business. So when people are here, the quality is going to be exceptional because it comes back on us. But do you think the government's going to care? Do you think they're going to care about what the quality looks like? I mean, go to pre-primary. They rolled that out. Sorry, I'm a little angry, and you probably can tell that. They rolled that out. They stripped us of our children. They stripped us of our ECEs, because we lost those because they pay better money. And they don't have, and at those programs, they don't have to follow any of the same rules that we have to follow as licensed childcare. So it's just a free for all. I've had children come back to me after they've been in the pre-primary program because they're not learning anything and their parents want them to learn things. So I've had children that their parents have brought back to because they're in the school system and they're learning things that they don't want their kids to learn at 4 years old because they're with other children. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I just get on a rant there.
No problem. Thank you, Paula. I really appreciate that. So I would like to hear from Elise. Maybe you could share some of the impacts of the options that you've been presented with.
Well, I don't think there are options for us. I've been in meetings the last couple of days and people are crying because they're taking away people's retirement packages. They're taking away people's livelihood. They say this is all good. Oh, you can join the central agency. Great. What's going to stop them from firing us the next day once they have all our stuff? And then the central agency is going to make up what they value is what we're worth. Well, no, that's not acceptable. We've been working in this hard for too many years to somebody come along and say, we'll give you $5,000. That's what you're worth, and good luck in your life. Even if it was $50,000, that's not acceptable. None of the options are acceptable. It would have to be option D, and There's going to be a lot of people shutting down, and the only way he's going to get the 9,500 seats is because the private centers have 9,750 seats. And if they take all hours, that's the only way they're getting those seats. And I find it disgusting. They always forget about daycares and all their little announcements. Oh yeah, the daycares will follow this too. Or I just feel so shunned, or I don't know. The government doesn't respect us, and we fought so long, and people before me obviously fought so hard, and all that work is just going to be, yeah, whatever.
Certainly, we recognize the value that our childcare providers give to the community. Parents could not go to work. Our economy would not be thriving or able to operate without the work that you've all put in. So again, I thank you so much for what you do every day, and thank you for being here to share this. So I would like to hear from Ellen now, if you would like to share your perspective on the potential impacts of the three options you've been presented with.
Like the rest, none of them work. And what nobody's really said is that no matter what we take, our staff are not secure. We've gotten staff that we rely on, they've got the routine down, they know the kids. Our staff are not secure. So it's not just for us, it's for the staff too. They can be shipped anywhere. We could have somebody come in, that we don't know, that maybe we don't get along with, or the kids don't get along with, and then you're stuck with them for the day. So it's security for everybody, and we're not getting it. We're undervalued. We're just a second thought on somebody's radar until they really need us, and then they value us. Like, we're essential workers when they really need us because parents are crying. Now we're just undervalued and ignored, and they think that we're just going to roll over and take it. Well, no, we don't do that. Nobody does it. It's, I'd go with option D or close. That's the thing. It's just not worth it. As let them take over and take everything that we've worked so hard for, and scrimped and saved. It's our livelihood. Like Pat said, retirement. Once they take it, we don't have anything. It's gone. So yeah, no, this is not acceptable. We need another plan. They need to work with us as a whole group and come up with a whole new plan that includes everybody, and make it work. And they can do that. They're just being.
I see, Elise, you have your hand up. I'm going to go to Andrew first, and then I'm going to come back to you, okay? All right. Andrew, do you want to talk about the impacts that you'd be facing?
Well, like I said to you earlier, a lot of these are common to all of us, the impacts it's going to have. I think a lot of people, though, they do, certainly the general public, they don't know about the impact of how the centers will run. They think that it'll probably stay the same as it always has, just be more funded. But no, it's the central agency will control the wait lists and where the kids are placed, and a lot of that personal part of daycare that we all have been doing forever, that'll be taken out of it, and it'll just feel a little bit less personal. And that's the opposite of how we've always run. It's very emotional, personal business to be in, looking after children day after day. And I just think that parents think that, sadly, they haven't been fully informed about how it's going to look once the new system comes into place.
We'll go back to Elise just briefly there, and then we're going to move on to the next question with Patricia answering first. So Elise.
Hi. Yeah. I just wanted to say that, yes, pre-primary, I think, was a lot of it. And they keep saying, well, you can't use the word all, but they did take all staff, and they all went to pre-primary for money. And as far as pre-primary, they never asked daycares what they thought about it. And they're pushing this big pyramid model, which is social emotional. The kids are not ready to go to school, and now they're talking about taking 3-year-olds into it. It's disgusting. I have kids who are so outgoing, and then they go to pre-primary and they don't talk anymore. They're not the same kids. It's I don't know why they're all doing this, but it's disgusting. Sorry.
Good point to lead into the next question that I'm going to pose. So we heard on the provincial news announcement of this program that there was extensive consultation done with childcare providers. So Patricia, could you explain to us from your perspective what that consultation process looked like with you?
I had to really think about that because there wasn't much. On November 29th, they sent out to each daycare owner a letter stating that there was a survey. It was totally voluntary if you wanted to do it, and to send out a copy of that letter to all the parents. And again, it was voluntary for them to do. Going through it, I thought it was quite a negative survey. It didn't take long to do it. It was only 5 or 10 minutes, but there were questions in like, what don't you like about your daycare, and what would you change, or what are the problems? And I know there are problems with spaces in Truro as well as, you know, across the province. I'm sure there are people that need childcare that are on lists for quite a long time. But that was all we heard, and that's all the consultation. Now, before they rolled out the pre-primary plan, they did consult with another survey, and on it they gave the impression that if we were able to, how many spaces would we be able to cover for the pre-primary age group? And they said that they would likely be using daycares as well as the schools. So then they didn't offer that to us in the end. So I'm not, you know, we're not really trusting of what's being said. And plus, if it's such a great program, the one they're rolling out, and they keep saying it's such a great program, why are they being so secretive about all the lack of detail about what it's going to entail? And why the day after, well, after the Zoom meeting of the discussion or the explanation of what they were offering, they didn't send out any information until after that meeting to us. We had no idea what was coming. And the day that the next day they announced the 25% reduction in fees for parents, that was the first we heard it, the same as the public. Then I thought, okay, it's retroactive to January 1st, so I got to start telling my parents they only have to pay 75%. And I started making out my bills that way. And then I thought, well, we're not getting any information on this. I wonder what they're planning on doing. And I called Anne Marie Smith, who is the project director for the rollout of this plan. And she didn't call back but we did get information, I think the next day or whatever or Monday on that if we didn't sign, it was totally on whether we signed on March 18th or not. If we didn't send in the signed option that we were going to choose, then parents would not get the 25% reduction in fees. So we didn't have any information before that.
So would you say, and maybe we'll move on to Elise to answer this one, would you say that there's been a real lack of information provided to you, even though the government has offered grants of $15,000 for you to seek legal or accountant advice? Is there enough information being given to you?
No, they just come up with, we're going to do this Zoom meeting, or they hand out a memo and then expect us to respond to it, and they don't give us enough time. It's like a couple of years ago when we had to sign on for everything. We asked for our lawyers to look at it, and they said, no, you have to sign it tonight. And I was like, well, this is a legal document that we're signing, and then don't sign it. So I'm tired of being blackmailed into submission is what I feel like.
And Paula, do you have some thoughts on the amount of communication, consultation, details you're being provided at this point?
Yeah, I agree with everyone that spoke. We are the last thought, and we don't come into play until they need us to be in play. And then it's just kind of rolled out. And I think because we're so used to lack of information, they just expect now that they can just do whatever they want to do, and then we'll appeased by it. Like the same with this whole thing, like after them bullying us, then they expect us to make the decision before that. And then they expect us to pass out these checks to parents. Like they just keep adding things on top of everything for us to do for them. And yet they don't want to do anything for us.
Yeah, now we're their accountants. We got to figure all that out. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So Ellen, we'll move to you. And do you have any thoughts on what that consultation process looked like for yourself, and your thoughts on the amount of information you're being given as you face this monumentous decision?
Same as Pat, I did the survey and I felt, yeah, you can say we all have complaints and we all complain, but you know, what it did was, where did they put everything? Why did they ask those questions? It wasn't enough information to answer things and what they were looking for. And I think the last thing I wrote on that was just leave us our centers. Don't take our centers away from us. And I thought, at that time, I thought, oh, it was a weird thing for me to write, but I'll leave it in there anyway. And now I know why. I guess maybe hindsight, I knew they were taking them. But yeah, it's always lack of information and you're always told to sign. It's like you're being bullied, and I'm tired of being bullied. We need to stand up to them and say enough is enough. Start treating us fairly and, you know, not put us on the back burner until you need us and then pull us front. So same as the rest of them. We need more information. We can't make a decision based on what we're giving.
Thanks, Ellen. So Andrew, and again, you have two locations that you're facing this with. Were you reached out to beyond asking to fill out a survey, or did you have any other type of information or consultation provided?
No, definitely not. No consultation. And like I do have two centers, and I just wanted to speak to something that someone said earlier, Lee Lou's Pat, because she has similar to me. Like I have two centers where one's funded and one's unfunded, and she said that she has some funded spaces, and then the after school is unfunded. And that announcement that they made, it does feel a little bit like blackmail, right? Because they said we'll give those parents the 25% reduction if you sign on. So it's like puts it on me to sign on to what they want so that I can help my parents out. So it was really felt, that was the first time I felt like, wow, like maybe I missed the email when they consulted me before, and like I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but now it feels like they're just not interested in really figuring out what's going on.
Right. Okay, so what do you think, and we'll just kind of move through this, Andrew, what do you think the government could do better to support a $10 daycare for the parents? Like, do you have an idea or solution for them that would be workable?
Well, like I said, I'm not going to come up with something revolutionary. I have my own ideas. But like I guess people maybe don't understand that a lot of families are getting $10 daycare right now. It's just through the subsidy program. Like I have lots of families that if they apply for the full subsidy, my rates minus the subsidy is $10, $11. So it's like the more high income families might benefit from it, but they don't seem to be the ones that this initiative was to support. It was supposed to be the disadvantaged and low income. Well, I don't see how this is really helping them more than they already have been. So So I'm confused by it, to be honest, how they think that it's going to help the families that are already being helped. I think it's more of just trying to appeal to most people, most voters as they can, I guess, just to be cynical.
And Pat, did you want to weigh in on that?
I agree. About 25 to 30% of my parents have subsidies, so their daycare fees right now are around $10 to $11. The thing is, if we choose to go out on our own, keep our centers and run them ourselves, there was an article in the Herald, and this lady, and I know this lady, Lisa Bedeau, that she does own a few other centers, but she said in choosing the third option of going alone would force private childcare operators to increase parent fees significantly, up $10 to $20 more a day. So a family that pays $40 a day now would be forced to pay $60 a day. The extra $20 would be needed to allow private operators to remain competitive with the increased staff wages government will provide across the province. But instead of this glorified $10 a day, we would have the majority of the spaces in the province now paying $60 a day. So the for-profit operators are being pressured by government are not predominantly women, many of whom, well, the for-profit operators are women predominantly. Not too many Andrews around, but we wish that we had more. They started their businesses 20, 30, or 40 years ago. So the mandate of the government was to get females back to work. This is actually going to do the opposite. This is going to make childcare so expensive and not affordable. Women will not be able to afford to go back to work, and they'll have to stay home because they cannot afford childcare. So it's a vicious cycle. We're back to 1971.
Thank you so much for that, Pat. And your knowledge is invaluable. It's really wonderful to have someone that has been involved in the industry so many years that, you know, has watched this get to this point and worked so hard for implementation of change. Paula, did you want to weigh in and chat on that?
I just wanted to say that nothing is free. I'm not sure that, you know, I would hope that most people in society know today that nothing is free. So that it'll be paid somehow. And I worry that it'll be child tax credit will be taken from parents in order to get this program off the ground and rolling the way they want it to roll. So I'm not sure who it's going to benefit. It's the same at my center. Anyone that has subsidy, I have a lot of single parents, single moms that I have, and they have full subsidy and they're paying $10 a day now. And that's the other thing, like if we choose to go on our own, we don't get subsidy, we don't get funding, we don't get top-ups for our ECEs. So, you know, we'd be wading in water up to our neck and barely able to survive. Like it's just, and we would have to charge the higher fees. And I'm just not sure why we have been singled out. And I'm really, you know, why is it such a horrible thing to be private or for profit? I don't understand where the government's coming from for that. They've been here, they send us consultants, they know the quality of care that is given in each one of our facilities. And for them to treat us this way, like it just makes me sick to think that they're completely ignoring the fact that they've been in our centers, they know the quality of care, and yet they want to push us aside and create spaces in schools and create spaces like all the non-for-profits are able to expand and make new spaces. I'm just worried because they're taking the heart out of this whole thing and what's left.
In September, there could be children that are 2 years, 8 months old in the school system, in those environments. And I know they are trying to make them as daycare and nurturing environments, but taking them out of a home daycare, someplace where they have extra staff and support in the classroom and low ratios, to go into a system that the ratios are higher by at least 3 to 4 children per staff, and not have the regulations that we have, the licensing that we have, and the protocols that we have that are mandatory. It doesn't make sense. They have enough on their plate to try and increase 9,500 spaces in nonprofit centers. Where are they going to do that? Let alone have to replace 10,000 from the commercial centers that if we decide to close. It seems to me they should work with us to rectify the situation, add another option or revise option 1 to include, letting us keep our centers.
Great. Thank you, Pat. So Ellen, did you want to weigh in with some comments on that topic?
Yeah, I don't know why they don't let us keep things. Like I said, when I answered that back, let us keep our own centers, keep things as they are, keep staff where they are, keep children where they are. And I agree, at 2 years old, going into a school system is unacceptable. Kids are only little once, let them be little and have fun. We are, like somebody said, one of my staff said the other day, you're gonna have all these portables in the playground, and that's where everybody's gonna be, is all in portables, because there's no room in the schools now. So why not leave everybody where it is? and work out a whole new plan that works for everybody. That, you know, we can do that.
Thank
Hopefully.
you. So I'm going to pose the next question, starting with Elise. So Elise, you know, we've heard a lot today on the current situation and the impacts. What would be your ask of government at this point?
Back off, get rid of the deadline of March 18th. Stop making us accountable for them and their actions. I mean, they did this pre-primary thing, but yet we had to bookend them before and after school. Now they want to take that away. They want to give parents money, but only if we sign, but then we have to be the accountants for them. They need to back off. Why don't they just give the parents the money? The parents can decide where they want to take their kids, because in this new one, they're going to go wherever there's space that day, and that's not acceptable. And they're not following the pyramid model at that point. The kids are going to be so messed up. There's going to be, they need to back off.
It's very difficult to make the suggestions to government knowing what you're facing. But I guess the biggest thing that we could ask of them collectively right now, we'll go to Andrew. What would you say? What do we need to ask of government at this point?
They need to take another look at it, for starters, but I think it's consensus that they should look at the Alberta model. That's the biggest thing. They've made way for the private. They've made way so that it works for everybody. Like, they can almost do it in conjunction with the new system to enhance the private, but not just completely replace it. They need to look at it better as far as like a daycare. My center, 57 kids, 7 staff. That's not, the quality doesn't matter no matter just by taking any 7 staff, or any group of kids. It's the group I have now. I put them up against any team that the government's going to come up with. Like, it seems silly to just replace what they don't even. It's hard to articulate, but they just need to take a better look at it. The Alberta model, like the way they all talk about it, is how other provinces are doing it. So I'd say check the Alberta one. That's the most advice I could give.
Okay, and Patricia, what are your thoughts on what do we need to ask the government to do at this point?
What did you ask?
Oh,
Not
I
me.
just asked, yeah, I asked what your thoughts were on
I'm
what
sorry.
we
I didn't
need
hear
to
you.
do right now to ask the government at this point.
I think they have to listen to some people on the nonprofit centers that are representing them, and maybe make an amendment to their agreement to include the nonprofits and let us run our own centers. And like Andrew said, the Alberta model, and they quote in their agreement, in the Alberta agreement with the daycare centers, that we know private programs are often run by female entrepreneurs or family-owned businesses offering valuable quality programs for families. While we hope to create new capacities in the nonprofit childcare sector, we will not be requiring private owners to switch to nonprofit models. I'd like to see that.
Right. So Ellen, what would be your thoughts on what do we need to ask of government right now?
Going back to the drawing board, back to the table, and take Alberta's model and working it so that it works for all of us. Alberta has a really good model that works there, and everybody seems to like it. I know last night I was on a Zoom meeting, and there was one of the girls is going out to Alberta, so she's going to look into it more. I just had an email from Stephen Ellis. I've got a call for him on Friday, so we'll see what he can do. But yeah, we need to look at this and go back to the drawing board. No, waive the time. We need to redo the whole thing. It needs to be done. And we need to go back to the federal and the provincial need to get together and talk to us and see what works for the Alberta model for us as well. So.
Well, we certainly recognize that 57% of licensed childcare is within the private ownership of child care centers such as yourself. So certainly holding the majority of those seats, working on a plan that doesn't work for you doesn't look good for parents. And I'm going to go to Paula with this question. What could parents, community members do right now to support you? What would you like to see happening within communities to show their support for you?
I have to say, our parents across the province have been tremendous. Like the other people have stated, we've been on Zoom meetings together, all of us, for-profit centers or private centers or whatever you want to call us. I guess they're all dirty words today. But we're together and we're talking and we're finding out, you know, how our parents are reaching out and doing things. There's been a survey or a petition that they're signing. They're reaching out to their MLAs. They're standing with us. They're sending us messages that just, you know, make our hearts just, you know, this is all worth it because, you know, we've made a difference. And I think that as the parents are doing their part, I really feel like our parents are, but if they're not, go to your MLA, send them the note that you sent to your private centers, telling them what an impact it's made in your child's life and all of those things. Send them those notes. We also were asked to share our, like as a group, we send our stories in to the government to show them, you know, where we've come from, what we've been through in order to be where we are today. And it was just like they disregarded it and didn't care that we were each individual people that have worked hard to get to this point. Like, I just can't state enough that I feel ignored and not appreciated at all. But parents, they're doing what they can do. If our MLAs can really push it, that would be, they see in our communities our worth. And I think if they can push that, and what you're doing, Sherry, it's just, I appreciate it so much. I've told you that, like, just getting it out there and letting people know the truth is what's so important right now. And I think our parents are behind us and supporting us. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Well, certainly through the Chamber of Commerce, we see these issues through the lens of business and the impact that it has on our overall economy. And we deeply value the service of our childcare providers in enabling people to work and contribute in meaningful ways to the economy. Without you, we would not be able to do what we do. So I would like to say that we have prepared a template letter that will be on our website following the webinar. When we make the webinar live and downloadable, that people can watch it. Anyone that wants to download the template letter can send it off to an MLA. They can change it to suit their needs or add or delete whatever they would like, but we're trying to make it easy for people to have that resource so that they can also support you in making their voices heard and let the government know how meaningful you are to their family lives. So as we wrap up, maybe we'll go around again and just have a few closing remarks from each of you. And I do see that there is another one of our locally owned, privately owned childcare centers here, Big Bird's Nest. And if Rose, if you would like to add anything to the conversation, if you want to unmute and say anything now, you're welcome to do that.
Hi, guys. Yes, I have been listening to you while I'm trying to prepare lunch and work in that. Thank you, all of you, Patricia, Andrew, Paula, Ellen, like all of you, we're all in the same boat. I did make a remark in the chat box that the thing that's hard for me, I've been in this for 40 some years. I bought the business, the center, 10 years ago after working here for 20 years before that. And as I said in the chat box, at the end of the day, I don't even own my building. So if they come and I lose my business to the government, I don't even have a building. I rent, I lease my space. So I don't even have that to fall back on at the end of the day. And like you say, you know, everyone mentioned earlier about, yeah, we sat down at a Zoom meeting and I'm still watching, where's this information package coming from? I'm sorry, that was dirty pool. you give us a presentation and then you take and say, oh, by the way, you'll get an email and here's your package. Well, we needed to have that before to look at and read and figure out what questions we might have. And I think it's wonderful the way we're all coming together and supporting one another. And yes, the parents have been very supportive. And like I say, I just don't understand why we can't maintain our private status and still be part of a national childcare program if they can do it in other provinces. And thank you, Sherry, and everyone that was on the panel today. Yeah, we're all here and hopefully we get through it because we're all in this together, I guess.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you for being willing to speak as well. So we'll go around for some closing comments, and I will call on Ellen first. If there's anything else that you would like to add that you feel people or government should be aware of right now.
I guess the one final thought is I teach ECE's year 2 at the Jane Norman College, and when we did class on Monday, the students have a petition going, so they are invested in this as well. So it's not just affecting us, it's a ripple effect. It keeps going out and out. So the more letters we get out there, the more we make ourselves known, I think the more that the government is going to have to take a second look at it. So yeah, keep pushing those letters. Get your parents to write them. I know ours have. I see some of the others have as well. So the more we get out there, the more exposure we're going to have, and the more they're going to have to not hide somewhere. They're going to have to take a look at it and deal with it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Ellen, and thank you for being here today. Paula, do you have some closing comments that you would like to make?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know too that with that Alberta model, if you wanted to sell your childcare business, which is what all of us that are in this at some point we're going to retire. We built a business, we would sell it to retire. If you sold your business to new owners with that, they still get to have all their grants, their subsidy and everything. If the place is still where it is, like you can't obviously move it and change and all of that, but my existing center, if I was to sell it, it's no problem for it to go on to the next person, and all the subsidy, all the grants, all of that would continue with the next person. And I think that is key to us. I mean, how do you just go into somebody and say, okay, everything that you've worked for the last 40 years for Pat, I'm sorry, but it's worth this if you decide to stay with us, and you will get this wage, which we don't even know what our wage will be. We don't even know, if we are too vocal about how we feel about our program when they're overseeing it, we could be out the door. So everything that we've worked for, we could be starting over, working part-time at the gas station, not to say that's a bad thing, but when you worked out and been an owner and run your own business and not had to work, under somebody else, that's going to be, well, I don't even want to say, but anyway, in the Alberta model, they also get to have their subsidy. They also get to have their wage top up. All of those things that they're going to take away from us, they give to for-profit centers. And I just wanted to say, I don't think the government thought that we would come together the way we've come together. So all of our centers across the province have come together. We're working as one. And I think they were counting on us not. And we have a lot of great people that are in the forefront of this, that are working tirelessly every day to push this and to work for us. And I just wanted to say a shout out to them, because they have been moving things and getting things done. I guess that's everything.
And thank you, Paula. You've been wonderful to talk with to help me get a better understanding of the needs as well. So Elise, would you like to unmute and share some closing thoughts?
Yes, I think like Paula and everybody else said, we're all on the same page. I would like the government, no more lies, no more talking in circles or catch-22. Be clear, state what you want, and actually be reasonable and talk to us. Not just tell us what you're doing. Talk to us. There's so much experience. You just can't go, okay, I'm the head of the Department of Education, so this is the way it's going to be, and da-da-da. You need to talk to us. You need to respect us and value us. No more lies. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much for your time to be here. Andrew, would you like to share some closing thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'll start by saying thank you to all the ladies on the panel. I know you guys are all great and have good programs, and I hope the best outcome can come of this. I guess my biggest thing is that the government, and I mean, up till last week, all the commercial operators were all basically competition. We never were a common entity, and we always, they kind of counted on that. But I think the biggest thing that brings people together is like injustice, feeling wrong. And that the way they did it there, they said they were going to give us an information package long before they came out with their presentation. They didn't. They actually didn't give us the information until after the presentation. And like all those things led up to not just one or two all centers felt immediately unjust and wrong. And we said, look, we're going to band together, which they didn't expect. But this is what you're dealing with, it was almost hard to believe we wouldn't have all come together. So I just hope we continue to get down the path. It's going to take a lot to get them to change a bit, but I think we're already on the right path. So particularly.
Okay, wonderful. And again, Andrew, thank you for being here. And
no problem.
Patricia, if you would like to share some of your closing thoughts as we wrap up today's discussion.
I was just thinking of the expression of interest, the EOI that we all received from the department and signed and sent back in, that we were interested in going forward with them and receiving more information on their program. They encouraged us, left blank spaces for us to write down our concerns. They wanted feedback before they came to a decision. And then a lot of people did write their life stories, like Paula says, and sent them in, and what it was going to do if they took away the centers from them. So, I mean, I think Andrew's right. It's going to be they're digging in their heels and they don't want to change. I'm just wondering if we were all male, if it was a male dominating industry, would it be the same outcome? And it bothers me that they've hired, and maybe that's the only way they can do it, they've hired financial consultants to advise this whole program. They're not daycare people. They've never worked in daycare. They don't know how daycares are run. They're totally profit-minded. How are they going to save the money, spend the money, and do it the way they want? And so they're not thinking of the children, the parents, the ECEs, or the directors, owners. So I don't know. We're encouraging Nova Scotians to stand behind us and encourage the Premier to sign an amendment to include private operators in their plan. Please.
Thank you, Pat. And I would like to say that we have a number of chambers from across Nova Scotia on this call today. We have engaged with the Atlantic Chamber of Commerce to hear the issues that everyone here in Nova Scotia is experiencing, and support is coming through the business community in a number of ways. So again, I am very grateful for the precious hour of time that you have given us here today to share your stories and discuss this issue with us. There will be a downloadable template letter on our website for any parent or community member that wants to provide their feedback to the government. We're trying to make that simple for them, and we want to support your businesses in any way that our resources can allow. So we will also be writing letters to government on your behalf and continuing to engage with you in meaningful conversation to work together, hopefully on a solution that will work for yourselves, for the government, for your parents, but most importantly, for the children that are in your care, because at the end of the day, they are the most important piece of this. Right, and thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.